we welcome Chirag and Aryan today. Both Chirag and Aryan are proud students from Aptitude, and both of them have made us proud by clearing. Last year they cleared IIM Indore and IIM Rohtak the Aptitude test, and both of them are currently students at IIM Rohtak. Sorry, just a second, guys. Right. Sorry for that technical snag. Why don't you guys quickly tell us something about your journey at the IIM so far, right? It's an exciting place. We hear a lot of stories about the IIM IPM program at the IIMs. So I think for everybody listening in, maybe you guys could tell us a little bit about your journey at the IIMs and how the experience has been so far at IIM Rohtak.
Right. I'll begin. I'll start it off, sir. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, sir, for inviting us back here. It's a real pleasure to be talking about our college with our coaching institute, and to tell about all of this to the young aspirants who are eager to crack this institution and this exam. So my journey at IIM Rohtak has been nothing short of amazing. From the time we've heard that we could go into an IIM and study right after class 12th was nothing sort of like an amazing news for us, because this was something absolutely new. We were not aware of the fact that you can directly go to an IIM after 12th. So this presented an amazing opportunity for us. Being interested in business management, this was a very natural option for me to take as a young commerce student. So straight out of class 12th, I had enrolled with Aptitude, and we prepared with a crash course to get into IIM Rohtak. When I reached there, I was lucky enough to get my good friend Chirag with me right there from school.
Right.
So we two navigated IIM Rohtak like, wow, that is this IPM program with high hopes, and everything according to us has been ticked off the expectation that we have had from this institution. So we have an amazing course curriculum, an amazing set of faculty. Yes, there have been some struggles along the way as we have tried to understand the culture of a business school. But actually, to just sum it up, it has been one hell of a grueling journey, and it's surely going to push you out of your comfort zone and force you to achieve higher.
Amazing. That's great to hear, Aman. I'm sure the journey is just started. Sure, you're going to face many more challenges and many more grueling tasks along the way. Chirag, you want to tell us something?
So as Aman said, even I enrolled with Aptitude for crash course after grade 12 directly. So I got into IIM Rohtak, and honestly, it has been a roller coaster ride. So we've indeed had many ups and downs, as even Aman mentioned, but getting used to that IIM culture, being a part of the entire legacy, wherein you can relate with professionals on a whole different level. Like when you hear stories of IIMs, like people telling you, we have deadlines every day, we can be called to classes anytime, we have a guest lecture. No matter how weird it might have seemed earlier, how can this happen? It honestly feels great to experience this, and I'm indeed glad to be a part of the IIM family. So my experience has been really good.
Amazing. That's great to hear. In fact, both of you sort of mirror this big perception that all of us have, that once you get into one of the IIMs, that life becomes like amazingly fast-paced. There's things to do every single day. The program and the faculty there have planned out your life in every small detail and every bit of detail, and so life there is quite hectic. It takes, I can say with certainty, when I went there for a PG program at IIM Bangalore, certain first couple of months is a bit of a challenge because you need to adjust to the pace of life there. And I'm sure it is so with the IPM as well, right? But maybe you could tell us a few things about the program that you think are better than some of the other options you considered for management. Yeah. You don't have to be specific in terms of colleges, but what do you think an IPM offers that a normal graduation is not?
So if I may take this question forward, So IPM for one has a strict rule of the 100% attendance. Now, this rule I believe is very important and will help us a lot in the long term, because a manager in the long term should have discipline and should know the value of time. So, and IPM has a very rigorous curriculum, so it requires you to pay a lot of attention in class, be present for lectures, so that you can actually grasp a lot of knowledge and succeed in life. So I don't think any other colleges except IIM-Indore have this 100% attendance rule. So one plus point about IPM is definitely it instills a lot of discipline among you.
It's a bit of a googly, because I would have thought 100% attendance means you guys would come in and say it's a little risky, don't join because it has 100% attendance. But I like the fact that, you know, if you're, I mean, I guess it boils down to the maturity and seriousness that you guys have, right?
Yes.
And if you're really serious about your career, if you're really serious about management and want to learn those things, then attendance, whether it's mandatory or not, will be probably. Okay. Any particular high points for you so far in the journey, Aman? Maybe any one thing that happened at campus that you want to relate to as some good anecdote, some good story to tell?
Well, there have been plenty, sir, but like one which I can particularly recall to my mind is I believe we had our midsem examinations, some examinations going on in our institute once, and the exam was, I believe, from 14th of some month, and we all were like busy in its preparations, right? So right before, like 1 or 2 days before the examination, we attended a management summit which was over like 5 hours in our college and once in USI Delhi, and we did this right before our examinations, right? So we were a little bit surprised at first, like what is the college doing right before the examinations? We are attending all these summits and everything. So coming from a like school background, we were not used to the fact okay, that we can do something else right before the examinations, right? We cannot multitask like this. We cannot like manage one thing and then other, like sole focus used to be on examinations and everything. But like our college has literally like, you know, sort of like rewired our minds to multitask simultaneously. Like we can handle things under pressure, because that was exams, as you know, so it's very like a very high stress time, right? Yeah. And right during that time, you're calling us for a summit, that too making us spend like 5-6 hours listening to corporate knowledge, and that is just before examination. So this was something which was new to me, but this was definitely something which, you know, teaches you how to handle pressure, how to manage your time after that. You know, we're preparing for our grueling examinations right after 5-6 hours of attending a seminar or attending some event. So that is something which I believe really pushes you, and that is one anecdote which I remember particularly, you know, which sort of got us out of our comfort zone and, you know, got us to focus on other things as well.
I mean, our viewers will be thinking that, I mean, if you have an event 5 hours before your actual exam, the exam deserves to be postponed. Sure that.
But yeah, you get to it over time.
Absolutely. You need to get used to it, and the faster you get used to it and adjust to it, I think. I mean, I remember at B school. I'm not sure if that's the case for your program, but what about 1st of January? Was it an off for you this time around? Because I remember B schools make it a point every year to schedule something on the 1st of January, right? Basically, make sure that you don't have a very long party the night before, and so that's something that, you know, B schools do quite often.
Like I'm not sure about I think first year I was not sure, but yes, there is this culture where, you know, we are tasked with important things right around the time of festivals and holidays. You know, in fact, we often have classes 7 days a week, sir. In fact, our weekends sometimes are not off because, you know, we're either busy in organizing some event, we'll either be busy in doing an assignment, we'll be doing some project which the professors assigned us, or we'll have classes Saturday or Sunday, you know. So like this is a very high pressure environment, and during weekends or festivals, it's not actually taken into much account, because they're like, we're here to learn something. In fact, I remember this very famous story which was shared by a professor who came at our orientation. I believe he was teaching at IIM-Ahmedabad, a guest lecturer. He mentioned that during the Gujarat Bhuj earthquake, if you remember, in 2001, he was teaching a lecture in IIM-Ahmedabad, one of the lecture halls, and the earthquake came around that time. and there was a bit of damage done there as well, right? And normally, in normal circumstances, you would think, all right, we can just postpone this event to some other time. Our professor, he proudly came up and he was like, despite this thing happening, we got everyone rescued, we got all the situation in order, and after that, 1 hour later, we resumed our classes. And I was like, wow. I was like, wow. That goes on.
Indeed so. Those are some inspiring stories, right? And I mean, you can laugh all you like. In hindsight, it all sounds very funny, but there in the moment, it just sounds it is quite a situation.
Definitely.
Okay. Moving on. Nice. Good to see the one aspect at the IPM at IIMs. One question that most people ask us is, first I'll probably, what the way I'm structuring this session is that we'll probably cover a little bit about the program, the IPM program itself, and then move on to maybe something that our viewers might be equally interested in, how to crack the entrance exam, right? So a couple of quick questions I'll probably ask you about the program. So 5-year IPM, right? And obviously, I'm given to understand you guys did appear for a lot of management entrances and commerce as a stream, right? You both come from commerce as a stream. So 5-year IPM, right? There is still a lot of confusion. Maybe you could clear up the air around that. Is it a recognized program? Is it a diploma or a degree course? Is it approved by AICTE or the UGC? Etc. Right? So about the program structure itself. So maybe your views on that.
Right, sir. So there is an existing confusion that IIM still had because of Indore's existing structure. There's a belief system that IIM still follow IGNOU undergrad system and they hand out a diploma at the end. But I'd like to resolve this confusion because after 2017, when the IIM bill was passed, IIMs were automatically now eligible to give out degrees to their students instead of the normal diplomas which they used to give earlier. So right now in IPM program, when you enroll, you are enrolling, in case of IIM Rohtak, you're enrolling for a BBA plus MBA. So after the recognition of the bill and after its enforcement, IIM is now eligible to give you a Bachelor of Business Administration degree at the end of 3 years. And after the completion of the remaining 2 years, you get a Masters of Business Administration degree program. You get a degree basically at the end of those 5 years. So you get both these degrees hand in hand.
Absolutely. For those of us listening in, what this means is that from 2017 onwards, anybody who studied at the IIMs before 2017, if you went to IIM Ahmedabad, you would not get an MBA. You would get a PGDM. You get a postgraduate diploma in management because the IIMs were not universities. But come 2017, the IIM bill got passed by the Parliament, and from that point onwards, the IIMs were given the power to confer degrees, which means they could award degrees. So instead of PGDM, now the regular program became MBA, and so the IPM got split into an undergrad degree and then a postgraduate MBA, right? And there is an interesting aspect to it, isn't it? Even the undergrad degree is different at Indore as compared to Rohtak. So maybe Chirag, you could tell us a little more about that.
So at IIM Indore, you have a very liberal arts system. The subjects are based on liberal arts. So you get a BA degree by IGNOU.
Yeah.
Although IIM Rohtak's curriculum is inspired by that of IIM Indore, however, you get a BBA degree by IIM Rohtak itself.
Okay. So the undergrad degree you get at Indore is that of a business Bachelor of Arts, whereas the one offered by IIM Rohtak would be a Bachelor in Business Administration. So it's more of a business degree, undergrad degree that you get, right? But this is an interesting point because if you're pursuing post graduation abroad, then this might just impact your chances because you've studied an undergraduate program in management, and so colleges might assign you weights or might give that importance when they consider your candidates, right? So that's an interesting piece of information. But actually, something on these lines. So both of you are from are commerce students, right? Were from the commerce stream at school. And now that you're studying a program which has a fair bit of humanities and liberal arts structure, if I may say, how are you guys coping with that?
Honestly, Aman, go on.
Right. So, honestly, sir, what we have seen is that because IPM, if you see in its brochure, IPM is deemed to be a holistic development program, right? It is designed in such a way to give you holistic, all-around education.
Correct.
So when people from different streams, right, people from different streams come together in one college, you experience peer-to-peer learning, which is quite common in the MBA classroom as well. So some people are coming from arts, some people are coming from science, some people are coming from commerce. All of these bring different education sets and different skill sets to the table, right? So in a classroom, when you're sitting with all these people and you're learning about one subject from three perspectives, someone could have more input on a certain subject, someone could have more inputs on another subject. So you definitely learn to adjust and cope with people of all streams. You definitely get to learn how to respect all other point of views, right? Especially when you go into corporates, you are expected to deal with different departments: HR, operations, finance, sales. So in that sort of skill is being taught to you at a micro level, because you're learning to deal with people of different streams, deal with their different opinions, deal with their different perspectives, and get them all combined into one to get that IIM culture learning, if I may say. So that has definitely been a little bit difficult to adjust at first, but definitely a good thing, in my opinion.
Okay, but being commerce students, were you able to handle subjects like sociology, psychology, literature? I mean, how easy or hard was that to handle in the program?
So, if I may, so all these subjects have been taught from the very scratch. So it has not been very difficult to learn them as such, because if you are being taught the alphabet, you are being taught ABC over here. From ABC, we go on to sentences, to words, to sentences, so on. So basically, they are being taught from a very easy level. And honestly, these subjects are very interesting at the same time. So it just makes the curriculum a lot fun.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. I think the whole program has been designed with trying to make you guys into future leaders. And if you want to be a leader, I think you need to be a jack of all trades. So I think that's what goes into the thought behind this program was to create somebody who's equally comfortable with all domains, but especially in the important ones of management, statistics, and science, right? And so sciences, whether physical sciences or social sciences. All right. So that was quite interesting. That was a nice chat about the program. So you guys are in your second year now. How has COVID impacted your campus life? Obviously, you guys are back home, but any clue on what the way ahead for your program is going to be? Any changes in that?
As far as how COVID has impacted us, actually we were due to give our first year end semester examinations when this pandemic struck. In fact, when we came home with it, you won't believe this, sir, but within a month, our classes are back online, and our end semester examinations were actually finished right on schedule. We gave it all from our homes. But as I mentioned earlier, life goes on regardless of what happens, as you mentioned as well. So we did our rest of the classes online, and all our examinations were completed on time, so that our first year got over and we could start with our faculty research project, which were assigned in the summer vacation, right? So, and as far as what's the future, so I cannot definitely say for sure with the pandemic happening, but I believe we may reopen for existing students at least in August for us, and for the new aspirants, as per as what I'm hearing from the HRD ministry, most probably from September the new aspirants should be most probably arriving on campus, and hopefully with social distancing norms followed, we can see a normal campus life resume.
Yeah. I know. I remember, this chat I had with the two of you some time back, where you guys were telling me about the research projects that you're doing and the kind of project titles that you picked out, all of them relating to the current pandemic and its impact on various walks and spheres of life. So it's quite interesting, the kind of work that gets done. I know for a fact that you guys probably feel this year because of the pandemic, you're not able to intern. I think in place of that is a research project that you guys
Yes.
are undertaking. But yeah, I mean, I think it's overall, I think if I look at the program structure of IPM, I think I'd be very, very confident in saying that this is one of the most holistic programs that our country has. Yeah, I think it's a challenging bunch of kids that the program selects, and unparalleled in the country. Right. So our viewers, I think, are itching for more details about the test preparation, on the testing side of it, on how to get admission, how to get into, how to be one of those 150 kids who get to be part of this prestigious program. So, okay, what was your journey like? I know you guys have unnecessarily told everybody that you guys are students of ours, but maybe you could share, same time last year, you guys were also preparing for a variety of entrances, all the way from a lot of BBA programs, even Delhi University and the IIMs. So how did you approach specific preparation for the IPM? And maybe for now keep it general, but then if possible you could also tell us how it was, preparation was different from IIM Indore as compared to IIM Rohtak. Yeah. Each one of you, I think we'd like to hear both of you on this. So any order that you choose.
So if I may go first, if
Sure.
I talk about IIM Rohtak first, so IIM Rohtak has an exam pattern wherein you have quants, logical reasoning, and English. So this resembles the exam pattern for most exams like Symbiosis and Christ. So what I honestly feel is that you do not need any explicit preparation for IIM Rohtak as long as you prepare for those exams properly. It's the same curriculum, just the IIM Rohtak exam is a bit harder than the exam of other colleges. So if you are confident with quant, Sera, and English, then you can
Yeah.
crack the IIM Rohtak exam very easily. It's just that
Yeah.
it's a bit higher in level. Now, if we talk about
Right.
IIM Indore, it has only two sections, maths and English. In maths, there's a segregation between the subjective and the objective section, and the English is as it is. Now, I personally believe the English section of IIM Indore was just a little bit harder, just a little bit harder than that of IIM Rohtak.
Wait. Let me just backtrack a little bit here. I can't believe you just said this. Are you saying that IIM Rohtak's exam is as difficult or easy as some of the other exams? Just for the benefit of everybody prepared here listening in. So are you saying that if I prepare for, let's say, a Christ or a Symbiosis or a Narsee, then I am going to be as well prepared for IIM Rohtak? Are you saying that?
No, what I'm trying to say is the syllabus is the same. So
Right.
basically, on the same syllabus in IIM Rohtak, you'll be asked questions which are a bit higher in level.
Right.
So
Right.
if you may take the example of class 12th,
Right.
so Symbiosis and Christ would be like your maths NCRT. IIM Rohtak would be those miscellaneous questions as well.
Okay.
So just a
I'm
bit
sure a lot
harder
of
in
people are
level.
scratching their heads at that.
So
Yeah.
just a bit harder than those,
Right.
but on the same syllabus range.
Right. So if you're preparing for Rohtak, be prepared to apply yourself a little more on the same topics, on the same testing areas as the ones that come on a Symbiosis or a Christ or a Narsee. So similar topics, but maybe slightly harder in terms of level. But the test structure remains quite the same. Absolutely. And how would you say this? I'm sorry, you were continuing on about Indore. I am Indore.
Yes. So IIM Indore has two sections, maths and English.
Mm-hmm.
English is again a bit harder than IIM Rohtak,
Right.
but maths is completely different. So while maths is differentiated into two sections again, subjective and objective,
Right.
consisting of 20 and 40 questions each.
Right.
So that is based on higher maths, and I will say is a lot harder than IIM Rohtak
Right.
and other colleges.
For the benefit of those listening in, Chirag, could you tell us how much you scored in math in class 12?
So I got a 95 in boards.
95 in boards. Okay, congrats on that. How about you, Amar?
So 94.
94. So would you say that doing well in the math section is important to crack one of the IPMs?
So I think not, because you well, that's a very subjective question. It again depends upon your level of preparation and understanding of the concepts. So I am Indore is based on the syllabus of class 12th, but the questions are very high in level. So if you can understand those basics properly with a genuine understanding of mathematics, you can crack the I am Indore paper.
Right. So just adding on to this point, sir. Even if some person hasn't scored that well in his board examination or something, if you go to IIM Rohtak's website, the eligibility criteria is still just 60% to actually write the exam. So whoever prepares well for this examination, right, and whoever actually studies well for this examination manages to sail through, I think that person can very well is totally eligible and qualified to attend IIM Rohtak and benefit from its learnings. Because if you see the criteria is just 60%, it is quite easy. That is not a huge deal.
Absolutely, I'm sure you have a lot of batchmates who would have similar stories. I mean, I remember one of our second or third admissions into IIM Indore was this kid who got, I'm not going to name him, but somebody who scored an 82% in board exams, right? Overall score of 82%. And most people, I mean, if you're an aspirant, if you're a parent, then you'll probably think IIM Indore, toughest exam in the country, toughest sort of places to get in. Rule that out, right? But then, I mean, I think that story is there for you guys to learn from, right? If you can be smart and if you can, I mean, you obviously need to work hard, but you also need to be smart. And if you can do that, then none of these exams are actually out of reach, right? In fact, even between the two of you, correct me if I'm wrong, your strategies were different when you walked into the test center, right? And that's something that I'll come to in just a while. But purely in terms of preparing, so what you've told us so far is that if you're preparing for Rohtak's exam, then you continue to deal with the same topic. So make sure that you're good at the basics, but maybe prepare for harder questions, right? Maybe try and do slightly harder questions on every single topic, and that should get you on your way, right? So how did you guys approach your practice? How did you? I mean, I know that you guys studied with us in the classroom program, but after the classes ended, what would your typical day look like after going back? How much practice did you do? Did you refer to other books? Any other source? Any other words of wisdom for our viewers?
Right, sir. So, frankly, before beginning the preparation, as you mentioned, many people have this doubt whether I can crack it or not. So, foremost, before starting the preparation, I think the mindset is something which is very important. Right? If you can just have that right mindset, all right, I can do this. The mind is everything. So, what you think is what you become, right? So, if you have the proper mindset, then with that mindset, you start your preparation. And that I believe can definitely determine whether you will get in or you will not. A positive mindset first of all.
Very
and definitely, sir. And as for preparation, sir, frankly for me, how it looked like would be usually we'd attend the 3 or 4 hour classes in the morning, right? I will come to the institute and we'll attend those 4 hour classes. And after going back, usually we had all these books. Right. So first we'd go over the funda books which you had provided us. It was basically all those basic formulae, theory, and everything. We just go through that once and then solve the questions which would be given as our homework worksheets. Right. We'd solve that usually in that day. Whichever topic has been done, we just go home, go through that worksheet, check our answers, match them if they're doing it right or not. So this was what usually our day looked like. We do the worksheets, we refer to the funda book once in a while. But for me, what was most important was, sir, that two things. I figured out my strengths and weaknesses, and second, I attempted a lot of mocks. So these are two things I believe which are extremely important for preparation. So during preparation, I realized, because since I am a voracious reader, so I noticed that my verbal was comparatively stronger than my quant. Right. So while I was figuring out a strategy on how to write the exam, I noticed that my verbal could be finished in, much quicker than the average student. And I could instead devote that extra time which I got towards quant, towards which I struggled slightly. So this
Right.
was what I figured out during my preparation. So typically I would complete verbal very quickly, and then I would move on to quant, right? So I'd give that extra time to
Okay.
quant. Verbal and logical were perfectly fine, and I devoted extra time to quant and just try to maintain the highest level of accuracy which I could in that section, because I was slightly doubtful
Right.
there, right?
Right.
And I did this, and definitely before the test, try to attempt at least at the minimum 5 mocks. Try to attempt those mocks on the aptitude website. We were given the online mocks which we attempted, right? And one thing I'd like to say is, don't care about that score you get, right? Definitely figure out what are your strengths and weaknesses from it, but please don't procrastinate. Like, I might not get a good score, I need to prepare first. I would just like to say to
Right.
everyone, don't focus too much on the mock score, right? Just try to figure out what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and do another one. I mean, no one's judging you for that mock, right? I mean, it's just a way to figure out your own things. So I would definitely advise everyone to give a minimum of 5 mocks. Try to figure out your stuff there. Try out different strategies. This strategy worked for me. It might not work for you. It might not work for Chirag. Everyone has different strategies, right? So give mocks, try different strategies, whichever works for you best, right? I would suggest go through with that.
Understood. Those are pearls as far as words of wisdom goes, because I think what Arjun Aman is trying to tell us is that take plenty of mocks and know your strengths and weaknesses, and much like our program here, it doesn't really matter what mock you take, as long as it has the basic components of English, math, and reasoning, and there is a time pressure set upon you. Taking the mock will help you figure out your strengths and weaknesses and work on them, right? Beautiful thought that. I think coming from the horse's mouth, at least 5 mocks. That's what you would recommend, right? Okay,
Definitely,
great.
at least.
Chirag, do you have a different thought on this, on how preparation should be approached?
So I would agree with almost everything Aman said. It is important to give mocks and find out your weaknesses and strengths. I found out that unlike Aman, I was stronger at quants than at verbal. So my strategy was also similar. Whenever I had a choice to shuffle between sections, I would attempt the quant section first and then go on to the logical and verbal section subsequently. So it is again important to know your weakness and strength and be careful while attempting the question and knowing what the question is actually asking for.
Right, right. That's quite interesting. Something that comes up, right, from both of your experiences. If as a student I realize that a particular area is my strength, maybe you're better off starting with that section in the exam, because Rohtak gives you the flexibility of choosing which section to begin with. It's all going to be online and take from home probably this year, but assuming that it does allow you to do that, always start. And this is something that I do recommend, even when I speak to the students. Always start with whatever is your strength, because that gives you the momentum to crack an exam like this. It's like,
confidence
classic
boost.
example is absolutely classic example. Indian context, Indian test team, one of the best test teams that we had was the best test team because we also had one of the best openers ever, right? Virender Sehwag, and on his day, if Virender Sehwag could go and give you a really rollicking start, then the team would really do well, right? So the start, I think the point I'm trying to drive is that your momentum in a test actually depends on the first half an hour, and if you can spend that on an area that you're comfortable with, not only will you score more, but you'll also get a lot of self-confidence and positivity from that, right? So that's something for everybody to sort of deal with. Another popular question that comes up is, okay, if I'm starting with my strong section, what about my weak section? So let's say, Aman, if I were to ask you, usually you would start with English, right? So what would your last section be then? Would it be math, or would it be math in the middle and then LR at the end?
Right. So firstly, I would attempt verbal, right? I would power through that section pretty quickly. I'd move on to LR because that was my second strongest area, and
I'm sorry. How much time would you give yourself for the verbal section?
So actually, this varies from candidate to candidate, right?
Right.
Because I am, for example, say I am more of a reader, so I can complete the reading comprehensions faster than a normal person would, right? Because I have greater reading speed.
Absolutely.
So technically, it would vary from person to person.
Right.
So I can't exactly put a definite number. I would suggest go through the mocks and find out what is the average time required for each section for you particular, and that would, I think, be more useful rather than giving my number, because every person is different according to my opinion.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Right. So, what I was saying was that I powered through the verbal section, LR sections initially, right? Because there's this psychology game, so that if you complete your strongest area first, and then you're only left with your weak area, then you're like, okay, I have this much time, and I have only this one section to complete. I can do it. Like, this is like a psychological trick which you can use, right? Because usually, if say I'm attempting, imagine I was attempting maths first, right? I would probably take a little bit more time in that. And as the clock would tick, I would just notice, oh my God, it's only like a half an hour left and 45 minutes left, and I have 2 more sections to go through, right?
Yeah.
So this is a psychological game. If you attempt your weak section first and take greater amount of time there, so you automatically, lose out the chance of scoring better in your strong sections, according to me. It's just a psychological game. Examination is not just about your prep, it's all about psychology as well on the day of the exam, right? You could prepare all you want, but if on the exam day you're not, in the right frame of mind, right? So I'm sure the entire preparation of the world won't help you. So what I did was I attempted verbal and LR first, and doing that quickly, I had significantly a lot of time for quant. Right. And because I was left with a significant amount of time, I also had time to focus on which questions I had to attempt in quant. Because there's negative marking, sir, in this examination. There is negative marking of 1 mark for every wrong question you get. So it's very important to choose the questions correctly, which were supposed to be doing. Only the questions I felt I was more confident, like, I'd definitely get the answer right, I would do that. Rest of the questions, if I had a fragment of a doubt, I'd leave it. I'm like, it's not worth the risk, 1 mark. Better move on. Just try to maintain a high level of accuracy while maintaining a decent speed, according to me, would be the way to go.
Absolutely. That's quite helpful. That's quite helpful. Chirag, any thoughts on that? Your end?
So, like Aman talked about negative marking, I have a quite different approach to that. But I would like to say that since it worked for me, I would not. It may or may not work for you. So it's just a suggestion, not a recommendation as such. So in questions where you know like nothing or can either narrow the answer down to 2 or 3 options, it's better to go for a smart and intuitive guess, I believe. Because it's said that the gut feeling is always right, first of all. Secondly, even if in a question you can narrow it down to 2 options and get the answer incorrect, there may be many more questions in which you can narrow down to again 2 options but may get the answer correct. So it is an alternative strategy which can be used while dealing with negative marking.
It's clearly one that you use to your benefit, and I should actually put this up with a warning to everybody listening that yes, these are exams which have negative marking. I know 1/4 is negative marking is there, and a lot of us tend to be very, very wary because of negative marking. But I think what we can learn from Chirag's point here is that you need to hold your common sense in the exam, right? If you can react well, even if you don't know the answer, what you could possibly do is narrow it down to maybe that's a ye or ye nahi ho sakte. If I can rule out 1 or 2 option choices, then your probability of getting it right goes up, right? If there were 4 choices and I eliminate 2 of them, then 50-50 chance of me getting it right from that point onwards. And that's a risk that's worth taking because the upside is much greater, right? Than the downside, right? So spot on. But I think there is a very big disclaimer that Chirag actually does make towards it. One is that you need to have a good sense of judgment of this, and B, it's not something that, correct me if I'm wrong, Chirag, but was this a strategy you used only for IPM exam, or did you also try this out in the mocks that you were taking before?
I even tried this out in the mocks that I took, and it is only in the mocks that I figured out that this strategy works for me.
So you're not one who subscribes to the view of let's mark everything C. Everything that I don't know should either be option B or option C, right?
Sorry, sir, I think I
Every year
lost
you hear
you.
this too, hear about this. Yeah, can you
Sorry,
hear me
sir, I
now?
couldn't hear you. Can you repeat
Right.
your question?
So I'm saying that every year students typically, there is the meme that goes around among students that the most common correct choice is option C or something like that, right? So anything that I don't know, I'm going to mark option C to it, right? And I know for a fact that a lot of kids do this in the exam, but that's not something that you're recommending, right? It's very, very different, and
Yes, it's different. If
yeah,
you
and
eliminate option C using common sense, if you eliminate option C only, then you need to choose between A, B, and D.
correct.
So it's not always that जब नहीं आता, go for C. Just take a smart guess.
Right, right. Okay. A lot of people are asking about higher maths. Is that part of the IPM conducted by IIM Rohtak? If I'm preparing for the IIM Rohtak's IPM, do I need to be very well prepared with higher math? And here we're defining higher math as topics, questions from trigonometry, calculus, areas like vectors, matrices and determinants, and more of the like, right? So are these topics, do you think, are they important for the IIM Rohtak test? Any one of you?
So, sir, as far as I have seen, higher maths is definitely important. But if you're seeing it from IPM Rohtak's point of view, then its importance slightly reduces, right? IIM Rohtak does not focus that much on higher level maths, right? Because its aim is to get students from all backgrounds, including non-maths backgrounds as well, right? It's that famous business school diversity policy which we follow, right?
Absolutely.
So we get non-math students as well. Therefore, the math level is restricted more or less to class 10th only, right? So if you have your basics and your foundation right, IIM Rohtak believes it can sculpt you into a great manager, right? Whereas if you talk about higher level maths from IPM Indore's point of view, there they focus more on higher level quant, because they have the special section subjective in which they usually ask the higher level quant questions. It's like there are topics like differentiation, integration, trigonometry, matrices, determinants, logarithms. So yes, from IPM Indore's point of view, higher math is quite important, right? Because they focus a lot on quant, not only in the exam but also sometimes in the interview, right? But in IPM Rohtak's point of view, it actually substitutes higher level maths with logical reasoning, right? So plus, because Indore's comparatively been more established, so its focus more towards a bit of quant side of things, right? Whereas here we have more or less an all-rounded profile students. So that's the main distinction, if I may.
Right. Okay. That's quite helpful. So if I'm somebody who's exclusively targeting Rohtak, IIM Rohtak at that, then I'm probably focusing on the same areas. A little bit of higher maths obviously can come about in the exam. Out of those 40 questions in math, maybe 5-7 questions would be from these areas. But the majority of the test is still going to be the basic maths, 10th level, some areas that we've already studied and covered for other exams. So maybe focus on those and do a lot more practice on those, right? And I think that should be the focus area. All right. Let's also quickly sort of touch upon the higher math aspect of it. A lot of our much like both of you, a lot of our viewers, a lot of our students will be attempting both IIM Indore's IPM as well as IIM Rohtak's IPM, right? So we've established that Rohtak, we don't need to do too much of higher math. But let's say I'm somebody who wants to also focus on IPM, right? IIM Indore's IPM, and I want to work on higher math. So is it purely CBSE level questions that come, or can I expect very, very hard, maybe obtuse questions in the IPM? And if that be the case, then how do I prepare for it? Chirag, maybe you could help me answer that.
Okay, so basically, IIM Indore maths can be and some questions may be NCERT level, while some maybe more than that, because I personally remember a question. It had something to do with find out the determinant of something. What is the value of determinant to the power 50 plus 1 or something like that? And it had alpha beta in it, so it was quite confusing. So some while it is based on determinants, a class 12 concept, and you can find out the determinant. but you don't
Right.
know how to find out that value. So some questions can be very hard, some can be a little hard, wherein you can at least understand how to approach the question.
Right.
But some questions can be like NCRT level.
So you're saying that there's a mix in a sense where
Yes.
expect to see some questions of NCRT level of difficulty, and then maybe so maybe equal proportion of easy, medium, and hard problem types, right?
Yes.
Even amongst so if I'm trying to prepare, would I really want to work for the hard question types, or should I focus more on NCRT and try and make sure that I get the easy ones right? What should be a good strategy?
So, sir, I personally think you should focus on your NCRT properly. Not only will you be able to get through the basic questions easily, but if you go through your NCRT, it has all the basics for the higher level questions. So, if you understand everything properly, it may so happen that you understand how to do a higher level question. So, using this strategy, you can attempt a little harder ones as well, if not the very hard ones.
Okay, maybe we get Aman's view on this, because as somebody who's not who doesn't share your love for mathematics, Aman, what was your strategy to deal with higher math, some of the
Right.
higher tougher topics?
Right, sir. So, so for me, the strategy would be the 80-20 rule, right? So it's mostly commonly observed that, 20% of the topics may give you the 80% of the marks, right? So what I would advise to all aspirants would be, go through the previous analysis of IPM-AT papers, which have been published, right? You'll get them on the internet very easily. Just go through them, right? Check which topics have been featured in previous papers. Then go through the topics and see once which topics are you most comfortable with, right? Check that. For first, check which topic has the maximum number of questions, right? Then from after filtering that out, you go through them and see to which topics you are most comfortable with, right? And after you, for example, there are three topics: differentiation, trigo, and integration. I'll go through all three of them. I'll say, okay, trigo is my strong forte. Three questions have come from this over the past 3-4 years, so I'll focus more on trigo instead of getting in too deep into each one of them, because right now the aspirants may not have time, right? And many of them even maybe non-math students, so there's not a lot of time you can devote. So you have to be pretty smart about it. Hard work is not the solution, smart work is, right? So you have to be very smart about the things you're studying. So check whichever topic is comfortable for you, study that nicely, and try to attempt those questions with high level of accuracy, rather than trying for all questions from all chapters, right? Because if your accuracy is not on point, you're definitely not going to crack it, because the negative marking will ensure that your marks go down and the cutoff won't be cleared. So in my opinion, just stick with the familiar topics and attempt them with high accuracy.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if it's IPM, IIM Indore's IPM, then you only have 40 minutes for that entire section containing 40 questions. So you need to be pacey, so you can't possibly attempt everything. So I think the 80-20 rule that you're saying, I think more to the point of maybe I need to know what topics I'll solve faster and I'll be more comfortable with, and so attempt only those in the exam. But when I'm prepping back at home, maybe I base my preparation more on the basis of what comes in the exam, right? And okay, so maybe here's a good time to probably talk about some of those topics.
So I wanted to add on something.
Absolutely, go ahead, Siddharth.
So in IIM Indore, the subjective section of maths does not have negative marking.
Yeah.
So in that part too, like MCQs, you can use a smart guess because in very complicated calculations, people say answer would be either 0 or 1 or the number of terms in the question. So I think again you can use smart guesses to figure out those questions. If you can, for example, if you have to evaluate an expression and you get one of the terms as 0, then I think you can assume that other terms will also be 0. And since there is no negative marking, you have nothing to lose. You may go with a smart guess.
Okay, so what you're saying is that try some values out, especially if it's I think it's a very smart suggestion from you, right? If it's a question from algebra that contains variables and alpha, beta, x, y, z, then put in some values and see what happens to the expression. If it becomes 0 for one particular value, then it probably becomes 0 for other values, and you can probably extrapolate that. right? So,
And you
so
have nothing
use
to lose
some,
either.
absolutely nothing to lose, no negative marking, and so at least in those, this sounds, making it sound very easy. To obviously, it's not that easy, because with no option choice, right? Even if you can attempt a few more questions on the basis of a smart strategy, I think it is completely worth it. Right? All right. So that makes a lot of sense. In fact, in the backdrop of this entire discussion is the fact that most of the IPMs, both the IPMs, definitely do have sectional cutoffs, right? Which means that there is a inherent the selection is inherently dependent on you scoring above a certain benchmark in every section that comes to the test. So even at Rohtak, even for I am Rohtak's IPM, you need to do better than the average cutoff that they've set in each of the three sections. Obviously, the total could be a lot more than the sum of those cutoffs, right? But there is a cutoff score. Somebody was asking us this in the chat. So there are sectional cutoffs, and you need to be prepared for it. In fact, that's why a strategy like this works. You start with your strong section, make sure that you're crossing the cutoff by a comfortable margin in as little time. And in fact, last year, when I hear Aman talking about your strategy, I remember last year there were people who who when attempting the IIM Rohtak paper, the plan was to take 1 hour out of the 2 hours and devote it only for math, and then the remaining 1 hour, 20 minutes of it, get the English section done. I mean, obviously you need to be really comfortable with that, and then utilize the rest of it for math, right? So English and English and LR take up half my time, and then the most, according to me, the toughest section for me takes up the remaining time. So that's a good strategy. In fact, I don't know if you guys practiced it. Did you guys ever give yourself some time for smart guesses, or would you do that along the way?
Along the way.
Along the way, right? Did you guys ever have a problem with making silly mistakes in the test? Was that ever a concern? And how would you deal with that if you found that you're making way too many mistakes? And I know a lot of our students do. When they're taking mocks, I know a lot of them will be thinking, I could have easily gotten 5 more questions right. I just made a silly error, right? So what do you do when you're taking mocks or on the actual test date? What do you do to make sure that you don't make those mistakes?
So according to my opinion here, yes, definitely we do make silly mistakes. We all are human beings. There are errors we tend to slip. So I think so. Basically, it's you usually make silly errors when there's comparatively more stress and pressure on your mind, right? That is when our mind actually slips up and makes those errors. Usually, right now, if for example, an aspirant might write the IPM-AT without any time limit, and one who writes with time limit, there's more pressure in the time limit part, right? So he may end up making some errors which he normally wouldn't if this, for example, there was no time limit, right? So I think it's all about the game of pressure. When usually you're under a high stress, high pressure environment, your brain automatically does tend to slip up at times. That happens, right? So my way to go about dealing with it would be usually be, right, whatever silly mistakes I make, usually if aspirants notice, there's usually a pattern among all your silly mistakes, right? Even like, for example, I remember there was one issue sometimes when I would see the multiplication sign simply as a plus sign. So, why in a hurry to read the question, I would see the multiplication sign as a plus sign and sometimes make that error, right? It's a very silly error. Like it's not even a conceptual error. It's just like you're reading too fast, you're under pressure. So you've not registered what is being written on the question paper, right? So one way is definitely to read the question paper twice, read the question twice before you attempt it, right? Make yourself a bit of a fast reader, read the questions twice and understand what the question is asking you to, basically answer. Along the way, as you write more and more mocks, you automatically get used to the pressure and stress. So the probability of making those silly errors definitely reduces with time. Obviously, you need to practice for that. There's no other alternative solution. And thirdly, I think you should identify a pattern. Usually, more or less, there will be a pattern, right? That you are simply making one or two silly errors again and again and again and again. So my advice would be just identify what mistake you're making again and again, write them down if you will, right? And before the exam, just consult them, right? Okay, I make these silly errors. I have to take care that I do not do the same in the examination. There might be just 2 or 3 silly errors which you do. Just make a list of them, go through it before the examination or before any mock you give, and just train your mind, wire your mind ki I will not make this mistake, this mistake when I'm attempting the actual paper. That helps a lot in my opinion.
Right. Good words of wisdom, right? Basically, know yourself. I think it's a lot of introspection that you're talking about. Obviously, comes with taking a lot of mocks. But if you're taking a lot of tests, then you know your mistakes, and you can categorize your mistakes into conceptual ones where I need to study harder, and silly ones where I just wasn't in the zone. I wasn't focusing hard enough. So if I notice a pattern in these types, then maybe jot it down and say, okay, read the question carefully. Read whether the question asks for X or does it ask for 5X, right? And stuff like that, right? So make yourself a ready reckoner of sorts, right? That makes a lot of sense. I think quite smart a plan that you're suggesting.
Definitely.
I also sense that all the yoga, pranayam that IPM includes as part of the course is bringing this sense of, oneness and just being connected with yourself. I think that introspection bit that you're talking about, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it the course which has done this to you, or were you always this zen?
Probably the course.
All the credit goes to your alma mater, is it?
So a lot of it, in my opinion, like I do enjoy the meditation. Usually I do meditate regularly. That is something which I personally enjoy. But as such, the institute does have this non-credit course of yoga, wherein you usually get up like 6 in the morning. You go up and you go for an hour of yoga to basically wake your mind up for the coming classes, right? So it wakes your body up, it wakes your mind up. You're more peaceful, you're more calm. You are more easily able to deal with pressure and stress, which business school will give you, no matter how zen you are, right? So I think yoga does help in that aspect. Right? Plus it instills the discipline that no matter how late you're sleeping at night, we have had project submissions which we have done at like 2 in the morning, right? 2 in the morning, we've done our project submissions, gone to sleep, and then woken up again at 6 for a yoga, right? So this sort of instills a bit of discipline in you as well, right? It gives you that mental and physical peace of mind. So I think a little bit of the credit definitely goes to the institute.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I ask, there are 2 agendas that I have in mind. One, all of us would like to get a greater, insight into and a peek into your daily life, right? How is it? But more importantly, I think you validate a lot of the thoughts that I have, which is that most students, every single one who's attending the session today, who's preparing for these exams, every single one is capable. But I think what happens is what makes a difference is the ability to stay calm on the day of the exam, right? And a lot of candidates, however much you prepare, unless you learn to maintain your common sense on the day of the exam, I think that is more important than anything else that you can do, right? And meditation, and I'm absolutely a very, very vocal supporter of meditation. I think every single student in today's world, class 12th exams ke liye ho, or maybe it's the exams that happen after that, I think meditation could go a long way in you maintaining composure, because these are high pressure exams. The day of the exam, I'm sure you guys can recount your the psyche of, you walk into an examination center and then you see all these people around you, and it affects your mind. I'm sure now that the exams are happening in online mode, taking it from home is a slightly different experience, but the pressure still stands, and the ability to sort of isolate that inside your head is probably what can differentiate the achiever from the non-achiever, right? So right. Very, very wise words.
Right, sir. I'd definitely like to point out, sir, that in this, because the exams are now being conducted online, this one good thing for the current aspirants is that you're giving it from the comfort of your home. Actually, in exams, if you notice, when you are walking into an unfamiliar surrounding, right, it is actually more difficult to give the exam in an unfamiliar surrounding from a familiar surroundings. If you're giving the exam right from the comfort of your home, you are much more calmer. Psychology says this, right? And I would know that because we taught that subject as well in our course. Because it's been told that if you're in familiar surroundings, you are automatically more relaxed, you're automatically more calm, because you're there every day. You're there in your home. Your home is a comfortable and a familiar place to you. So I would like to say this year aspirants are actually at an advantage, right? They don't have to deal with those unfamiliar surroundings, those chaos of people, so many people. It's easy to get intimidated as well, right? Seeing so many people come in and some person would bombard you with this or this question. So it's easy to get intimidated. But aspirants this year definitely have an advantage. So I'd just like to instill this in their minds that they do have an advantage, and they can perform comparatively way better than what students did probably last year.
Okay, well, we'll probably come back to the subject of exams, but maybe we would go on a tangent for a little while. Tell us more about the fun aspect at the IIM, right? So you're studying at Rohtak. I know it's a city very, very close to Delhi. But what's life like in at IIM Rohtak, and then how's Rohtak as a city? What kind of nocturnal / extracurricular / fun activities do you guys engage in when you're at campus?
So, sir, life at IIM Rohtak is very happening, if I must say. We have 5 clubs which organize events almost every other week. So, and you can attend all those events. So, so every week you have some event going on. You can participate in that. So it not only reduces your stress of studies, it also gives you an opportunity to rejuvenate yourselves. Then I personally believe that Rohtak as a city is not very developed as, for example, Gurgaon or Delhi. However, most of your basic needs would be satisfied in Rohtak as well. And you even have, it's not like there's no entertainment at all in Rohtak. You have cinema halls, you have a facility for paintball, you have fancy restaurants over there. So there are a lot of facilities in Rohtak as well. So overall, the campus life is fun. You stay with your friends all the time, then you can hang out with them on weekends in the city and can participate in a lot of fun events.
What kind of fun events are you talking about? What's your favorite, what's
the fun events
that you like?
Fun events as in the ones organized by the clubs. So they organize different
Give us some examples.
So, for example, the literature club organized an open mic event. So people had written poems, they narrated stories, they sang, some of them danced. Then the cultural club organized an art competition. Then the sports club keeps organizing a football tournament, a basketball tournament, wherein people form their own teams and compete. So there's no fixed fun activity. These fun activities keep changing every week as we have a new event coming up.
Do you guys also compete with other colleges in some of these events? Sport or some of these cultural events? Do you also have competitions with other colleges?
No, sir, not as of now in first year. The first year is based in college. We are not allowed to go to other colleges for events and competitions. However, that may be allowed in the second year. Because in the first year, they want us to be very, strict with studies and give it the best of ourselves. So it's based.
I think it's quite sensible. I think the first semester, if not the entire year, I think is what it takes for you to firstly settle and understand the rigor of such a program, and then obviously you can put your feet down. I think if you have events like reading and dancing and singing and all of those, I think there's obviously the opportunity to let you use. Okay, interesting. Okay, we'll probably come back now to the subject of the exams. I know we talked about how to handle the higher math component of it, but now that a lot of students are going to be taking mocks, right? The benchmark that usually say is that if you clear if it's a 100-mark paper, then you should be targeting a score of around 65, right? 60 to 70 in that ballpark seems to be a good number, right? So if what that translates into for the IPM would be 120 questions. Let's say I'm Rohtak gives you, that's 4 marks each, that's 480 marks. So what you're targeting is 200 to 250, right? 250 or thereabouts, 250, 300. So would you be scoring A is that benchmark, right? Right? In the actual exam, would you still look at scoring, even at IIM Rohtak or IIM Indore? Is it still a 60% or is it slightly lower in one or the other? And B, if that is indeed a benchmark, then were you hitting those scores when you were taking the mocks, and especially our aptitude mocks? Were you hitting those, or did you learn more from your experiences in the mocks and just did better on the day of exam? Aman, maybe you could start with your thoughts.
Sure, sir. So what my experience says is that the cutoff for the mocks initially, I think you shouldn't worry about it too much, because in the initial mocks you just get to know where you stand and where you have to go from there. So I would advise not to look too much at the mock cutoffs initially, right? But as the examination draws closer and then you're taking mocks, right 1 week before, those mock scores you should analyze carefully. And if you're not scoring up to the benchmark, analyze what is going wrong. Initially, I would suggest not to pay too much attention to them. But as you are going through and you're giving those mocks like 1 week before the examination or something, then you better check that you're hitting those appropriate benchmarks. So from my experience, initially, I am Indore, Rohtak, or any other management exam mock which I was giving, I usually noticed that my overall score was good, but my quant scores in a lot of examinations, especially Indore's higher math, were not so good. So initially I noticed that, and that's why I tried to work towards them. I didn't get like absolutely perfect by the end of it, but definitely up to an acceptable level where I was comfortably clearing the cutoffs at least, right? So that's what I noticed initially. Obviously, it's individual to individual basis, it varies, but initially students and aspirants might find that they're not hitting the required cutoffs, and especially because after 12th you sort of relapse into this chill mode, because you've just given your board examinations and everything. So students do often find that that contact with the academics have been sort of cut off for a while, but as you get back into that mode, I'm sure the mock cutoffs usually, as you progress through time, as the examination days draws closer, your score should definitely be going up. It should be on an upward trajectory, and if it's not going towards there, then it's a bit worrisome, and I would suggest to consult with the respective faculty in which you may or may not be weak.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Chirag, would you like to add to that?
So if you target a score of 65 to 70% in the actual exam, so as Aman said, in the starting, the mock scores don't matter. It just tells you where you exactly stand. But as you approach towards the final exam, try to get those scores within a 5-10% range of what you expect them to be. Because firstly, mocks are supposed to be harder because they give the worst case scenario, like what is the worst paper that can come. So the paper would be quite easier. So even if you get 5-6% less marks in the mock, compared to what you actually expect to get, I think you are on the right.
Any aptitude students listening? I think he just let out a big secret. Our exams are going to be harder than the actual test. So don't target a 60%. Maybe you're okay with 5 or 7 marks less than it. But I think a very common theme to what both of you said was that the trajectory has to improve. I think that's the focus of any student should not be I'm not getting 200, I'm not doing so well, right? I think the concern should be more on the likes of, did I improve from the last test? And did I set myself some target? Like, did I focus on a few areas so as to improve my score? And did that happen or not, right? And if that indeed did happen, then I should be happy, right? As long as the trend is a healthy one.
Definitely, sir. Like, competition is only with yourself, not with others.
Absolutely. That's quite interesting, right? Okay. I think we've talked enough about the test and higher maths and the books. A lot of people keep asking about, are there any specific books? And so once and for all, maybe you could post a discussion on that and say, are there any, I mean, in fact, I mean, maybe I'll let you guys answer it. Are there any specific books that you would recommend for IPM preparation, or is it just going to be, let do your basics well and learn how to apply those basics also?
So for me personally, the books provided by the institute were more than enough, right? We had the funda books, which dealt with the formulae and the basic theory, and basically all the things which we needed to understand before we attempted the questions. So the quantitative funda books and the verbal funda books, they were more than enough to cover them. And then the practice book and the subject-specific practice books and the class worksheets given at the end of the day, combined with the mocks, I think they're more or less enough. If students want to add more to it, I would suggest only two things. I would suggest one, add a newspaper, right? And second is add any kind of reading that you enjoy, right? It'll definitely give you an advantage because your reading speed will improve, right? Which will in turn improve the time which you will take to solve questions in the examination. And if you're reading newspapers simultaneously, right? Not only will it expand your mind, it'll give you new horizons to learn about, but this also gives you a really good advantage when you actually clear the exam and go towards the personal interview part, right? Because right before the personal interview, you cannot mug up all the current affairs, right before the interview, you cannot just mug up everything. So if you're like continuously, building a habit of reading newspapers and about what's going on in the world, and with that, if you're reading that also improves your reading speed, and that improves your comprehension ability. So these two things I would definitely suggest, or else the material provided by the institute is more than enough. Just like be focused on that, not go towards 10 different directions. Focus on the institute material along with the newspaper or any kind of reading you enjoy.
Okay. Chirag, anything you'd like to add, or that?
I would recommend the same thing. The books, I did not refer to any other book other than the ones provided by the institute. Honestly, they were more than enough. And with enough mock tests available, I think almost everything was covered. You possibly don't need to learn anything else.
Okay, here's a different kind of, let me rephrase this question slightly. Much like students this year, even last year when you guys were preparing, we gave you funda books, we gave you, the practice material in the books, and then we gave you an online account with topic-wise tests and mock tests in the account. So how much would you say you completed all of this content that was made available, right? In terms of the questions in the books and the sets in the books and the sets given in your online account. So did you do all of it, or is it on a case-to-case basis? Like maybe I'm weak at a particular topic, I need to do everything, and then in something else I'm strong, maybe I'll take a judicial call on it. So what was your approach?
So sir, I identified my weaknesses and strengths. So I concentrated more on the weaknesses, gave more.
Which was your weakness? If you don't mind telling us, what would you consider as a weakness in math?
So in quants, personally, I would consider the work part a weakness.
Okay.
That 60 units of work can be done so and so.
Okay.
So I wasn't very comfortable with that part. So I identified that part. I solved the worksheet provided by the institute very religiously. Then I went online, took your mock exams, and after that I felt a lot more comfortable with the topic.
Okay, so just did the class worksheet, did the funda books, and then did the exercises available and the mocks available online, and I mean didn't really refer to anything outside, neither for Indore, IIM-Indore, or for Rohtak.
No sir.
No sir. Apart from sometimes if you have to refer to your NCERT for old formulae, nothing apart from that.
Wonderful. That puts a lot of questions to rest. Okay, a lot of our viewers are also asking you guys to share your interview experiences, because I mean this is a golden opportunity. I mean they're getting to hear two people who cleared the admission test for both IIM-Indore and IIM-Rohtak, right? And which means that you went through interviews at both places. So what was your interview experience like? How did you prepare for it? Right? Because I know that we've done much of the same rigorous prep for them. Right? We've told them the same basics, but is there something that you could probably relate from your experience on how you tackled interviews and what to expect in an IIM interview, whether it's Indore or Rohtak? What should one expect?
So if I may begin, first I'll talk about my IIM Indore interview, then I'll come to Rohtak.
Okay.
So there's a stereotype that IIM Indore interview only has hard questions. Like they'll tell you to draw the graph of log x, sine cube x, tan cube x, and you can't even imagine what graphs they will ask you to draw. And for the other questions, economics is going to be hard, and business studies they'll ask you more than the NCRT. So I think while that may be true, but that is not always the case. In so I personally got swayed away by this stereotype and prepared only the hard stuff and didn't pay a lot of attention to the basic stuff. So from a personal experience, in my IIM Indore interview, I was asked a basic not a basic question on elasticity of demand and supply. I told them the answer. Then they asked me to draw a diagram. So while I
Right.
took the pen in my hand confidently to draw it, I got stuck for a second. I
Right.
was thinking which one was elastic and which is inelastic. So I just got too swayed away, concentrating on the hard part. It took me a bit to recollect the easy part. So I one tip is prepare everything you know. Prepare the
But
basics.
but I think the major point what you're trying to say is that academics are important. I mean,
Yes,
sure, you've
definitely.
written the test and you've gone to an interview, but do not ignore what you've learned, in class 12 because you're a commerce student. You come with some knowledge about accounts and economics and business studies. So all of that, a larger portion of your interview will be on academics. Is that right, Chirag?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, expect it to be a lot more acad focused. So make sure that you brush up. Ideally, you shouldn't feel the need to brush up, but I mean, make sure that you remember everything fresh in your mind. Okay, that's a good point. Uh,
So again, concentrate on your basics first and then go on to the harder concepts.
uh,
They can ask the basics as well. It's not only give us mushkil hota hai interview, they can ask you easy questions as well.
Correct.
Just to see your presence of mind at the moment.
I think if it's one of the IIMs, then expect the unexpected is the mantra, right? I mean, as far as the written test
Definitely.
go, or even as far as the actual exam goes, right? Actual interview goes. I mean, expect the unexpected. It could be drastically easier than your expectations, or maybe even harder, right? So either extreme could happen. Okay, fair enough.
To
Fair enough.
elaborate on this point, my IIM Rohtak interview, in my IIM Rohtak interview, the first question I was asked is from the first chapter of class 11th accountancy. What they teach you in first class. What is the main difference between bookkeeping and accounting? So now again,
And
you
you
may
did
never.
remember it, right?
Yes, sir. So
Understood.
I learned this from IIM Indore interview. Do everything. So so while people may think they may ask you complex things like the treatment or some specific things in the cash flow statement, they can ask basic things too. So cover everything you know and
Right.
expect the unexpected.
Right. Right. That's a lot of. I mean, even I've heard a lot of candidates coming back from interviews at the IIM saying that they ask me a lot of very basic stuff on the kinds of accounts, on basic economic definitions, on the basics of the studies. So yes, I think what you're saying actually seems quite obvious, but it's also something that people miss out, right? Because perception यही होता है कि yeah, we've taken ABCD Institute का interview, so I mean, so if it's I'm preparing for the IIMs, then the basics are done. Let me just focus on the harder stuff. But no, I think what your point is that you should focus on the basics. Make sure that you're revising everything from very scratch if you're going into an IIM interview.
Just a few more tips for the interview.
Yeah.
First of all, be on top of your general knowledge. You should have good knowledge of current affairs and
Okay.
static GK as well. Static GK means the
Right.
general knowledge that has remained for a long time.
Right.
So while in my IIM Indore interview, I was asked about the state politics of Haryana, the parties that ruled before us, and before that, IIM Rohtak asked me about the Nobel Prize. So they can ask you anything.
So okay, fair enough. The general experience seems to suggest that if you belong to a particular part of the country, then as a Jagruk citizen, you're expected to know all there is in terms of history, geography, culture, and economy about that particular state or town. So if I live in, I mean, if you're somebody who lives in Gurgaon, Haryana, and belong to the state, then you should know, a little bit of mythology, history of that state, kings who ruled, etc. Also about geography, also about, so anything and everything to do around your state, know it well, and obviously current affairs, and I think Nobel Prize, I think, is an example, but any appointments that happened, anything of note that happened in the business. So did you do any specific preparation for that, Chirag, in terms of current affairs or in terms of
So again, for current affairs, I refer to the study material given by you. And even though I'm not much of a reader, I read the newspaper every day to have, because last year even we had the Lok Sabha elections. So just to know everything about what's happening. So a tip for everyone, that even if you aren't in the habit of reading, start reading the newspaper at least.
Yeah, half an hour, I mean, definitely can't go waste. You can't really miss that. Okay, fair enough.
And one last myth that I would like to break is that in the 1 or 2 minute speech that you have to give on a specific topic, it's stereotyped that it's always on a general knowledge topic. So again, you can be asked to speak about anything. Like in IIM Rohtak, I had a generic topic like beauties with brains, something, something, something. While in IIM Indore, I had mentioned that I used to play chess before. So they asked me to speak on Vishwanathan Anand, what I know about him, and who is my role model in chess, and so on. So they can ask you anything for GK, your micro presentation. You just have to be mentally prepared for anything.
Okay, interesting. Aman, you wanna add to that in terms of interview experiences? Did something different happen in your case, or does it mirror what Chirag has just told us?
Well, sir, quite a lot similar to what Chirag has said. Most of those things happened with me as well. Some things which probably set my interview a little bit different from his would be that all candidates and aspirants basically need to realize that they are the ones who set the direction for the interview. Right? Most of the candidates walk into that room thinking that the interviewer is going to moderate this interview and he's simply going to be asking questions and they have to simply answer. Right? What they don't realize is that the interviewer there is simply there to listen. You are the one who has to lead the discussion and who has to speak more, right? And most students, what they do is for interview, they'll just brush up on tell me about yourself, that generic first question, right? They'll basically memorize their CV and just walk into that room and know a bit about current affairs and think they'll crack it. Right? But what my experience and opinion suggests is that when you walk into that room, right, you are the one who's going to lead the discussion. Whatever you say, they're going to grill you on it. IIM interviews, if anything, they are grilling, right? They're going to grill you hard on whatever you're going to say. Right. So what, for example, they will ask you about, what is your strength and weakness, right? No, not the generic qualities, but basically, for example, in academic wise, they might ask you which is your strongest subject. So for Chirag, it might be math. I said it was business studies because I frankly really like that, right? Business studies followed by accountancy. So that was my favorite. So I mentioned that. Now they grilled me all about business and what's happening in business and what's the business news, what's going on with the equity markets, what's happening in the stock market. So because I had like an interest in this, so I had in-depth knowledge about all this, right? I was up to date with the business and everything. So they in fact asked me my opinions and asked me to explain. At that time, it was a popular news, the Jet Airways crisis. Right. So they asked me to explain that, what I thought about it, what was happening. Basically, they wanted to know all about it, right? So because this was a news which these businesses knew, since I was very interested, I closely followed them. So I was aware of very in-depth and intricate knowledge about those, right? So I said that. So thing is, whatever you say is your strength, whatever you say is your weakness, they might grill you on either one of those, right? So at least brush up your weakness to an acceptable level, right? And your strength should be extremely, extremely strong. So whatever you say, they are going to grill you on it. If you are in doubt, any point you are in doubt, just leave it out. It's something which has been taught to us in our presentation skills class. A good speaker should always know that when in doubt, leave it out. If you're not confident about something, right, just don't mention it. Otherwise, they're going to grill you and then your ignorance will be exposed. Then that will pose a bit of a problem, right? Because they're saying that he's not confident in what he's himself saying, right? If this applies for even you when you submit your CV, and when you're speaking anything, you should be confident in what you know, right? Definitely that will go along a long way, right? And one more thing which I should mention, as Chirag said, current affairs, very important, right? Whichever area you're living in, as you said, that is also very important to know the basics, and not just for IPM, but for any management test. I remember in Narsee and Symbiosis as well, sorry, not Narsee, in Symbiosis and Christ as well, they asked us questions relating to Haryana and what is going on in Haryana and all that stuff, because I was from Haryana, and whoever from other states were asked appropriate questions accordingly. So current affairs is something you should definitely be aware of, right? And lastly, this one last thing I would like to mention, because Chirag has more or less covered all of it, so I just mention another small point here, that the interviewer does not expect you to know everything. All right, it is accepted that you will not know everything. You do not need to think that I need to be like Mr. Amir Khan, the perfectionist, I should know everything, right? You shouldn't go in with that mindset at all. College is basically not looking for a fully constructed manager. They just want the foundation to be right so that they can sculpt the next person into a good leader and manager, right? They don't expect a ready-made good manager right out of school, right? So it is acceptable that you may not know certain things. And in the interview, if it does happen that you do not know something, for example, in my Rohtak interview, I believe, I was abreast of the entire business news, but they asked me some question about Modi. And because I was not following politics that closely, he asked me some question about which country he recently visited and something related to that. And I was not completely abreast of the political news. So I simply mentioned, sir, I do not know this. I apologize. I'll make sure I'll run it through when I get back. So in the interview, if you're not aware of something, just apologize and mention that you do not know it. They see that as a positive, right? As someone who can admit his mistakes, right? Who can admit that he's gone wrong somewhere, instead of trying to bluff your way through. Right? Yeah. Many students, what happens is in interviews, they will bluff their way through. Even they'll try to say, yeah, sir, I know this. Yeah, this happened. They'll give very vague details and try to confuse the interviewer. Do not do that. The interviewer sitting there is not a fool. He's going to see you through your bluff. He'll know that this person doesn't know what he's talking about. No matter how good an actor or confident person you are, they will see that you're not aware of this. So don't try to bluff your way through topics you do not know or understand, because if more cross-examination happens, then you're finished. Then your interview is not going to go that well. So if you do not know something, just admit, sir, I do not know, apologize for it and move on. Try to move on from that phase. Don't get all awkward and very scared that, oh no, I messed up my interview. Just say sorry, move on, and go to a more comfortable topic. It's all right if you do not know some things. That's completely all right. I'm sure even Chirag would agree to this, that there were certain things we did not know, yet we were strong on the things which we did know, and that is what helped us get through the interviews.
Yeah. I think the template that you guys are drawing up for our students is that be prepared. Right? So when you walk into an interview, you walk in with a plan saying, okay, this is what I'm good at. This is what I would like to talk about. If it's academics, these are the subjects. If it's my strengths and weaknesses, here's my story. If it's about current affairs, I know what I do read about, and there are some areas which I don't read about. Maybe if I know sufficiently in advance, maybe we can read about it. But if you don't, like for example, if I'm somebody who follows sport and business, but not so much politics, then it's not considered an entirely negative thing that you don't follow one particular area, but at least have a linkage of that, what you follow, with your overall personality and your goals and aspirations, right? So as long as you can keep the mix going well, and be confident in the interview, and like Aman said, know how to lead an interview, and know that you need to wrest the initiative and take it in a certain direction. And much like Chirag said, make sure that you work on your basics. Every single subject that I know that it's a very popular question to ask you about strong subjects and weak subjects, but make sure that you do the basics in everything, right? Not just the stronger ones, right? So I think a lot of food for thought for all our students as far as interviews go. I think it's been an extremely informative session. If somebody is looking to prepare for the exam as well, I think you've answered a lot of those queries that sit on top of my mind, right? So okay, I'm going to quickly scour if somebody has any other specific questions. No, a lot of people are still asking about the kind of books that would be recommended. We've already covered that. Anything else that you guys want to say before we sort of bring this to a close? Any parting words?
One last point before I conclude for the interview. Definitely have something that you're passionate about and be ready to talk about it. Right? For in this case, for Chirag, it was chess, and he's an excellent chess player, as I have seen him in action. Like he knows a lot about chess and he plays a lot of chess, right? So that is something he's passionate about. He's also passionate about finding mental math tricks and everything. So he was prepared on that. And for me, I was more on business side. I knew more about business, and I enjoy working out, and fitness is something which I really enjoy. So that was something which I was passionate about, and I was ready to talk about it, right? So in most of the interviews, if you notice, people, if they talk about something which they are passionate about, and they enjoy it, it may be academic or non-academic related. That's not an issue. But if you can talk about that comfortably in your interview, that would really be amazing. For example, I remember that in my Indore interview, there was we were going into this panel, and all these interviews were asking all those technical questions and all that. Right next door, a guy went in, and this panel, instead of asking him any academic or technical questions, and this is an Indore interview, instead of asking him any academic technical questions, those guys spent like half an hour discussing only cricket. And I was like, what? Those guys just discussed cricket. Who is the greatest? He was a cricket player, I believe, very avid one. And they just discussed, what's going on with India's current cricket situation. Who does he admire the most? What has he done in cricket? Those guys just talked about cricket for like half an hour, and that guy was perfectly at ease, as he mentioned later, because he was talking about something he's passionate about. So have a topic or something, highlight that. It may be something in which you've achieved laurels in. For me personally, it was debates and MUN, so I highlighted that. It may be something you're passionate about. I mentioned that I like to be fit and work out, and all this different types of workouts I do. So I highlighted that. Some of the other passions, just get ready to talk about it nicely and perfectly, so that these guys know, okay, this guy has some of the other passion which he pursues in his free time. So they don't want a boring academic dull student only. They want like a person who can speak and be an all-rounded person, basically.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned you mentioned cricket, but there have been enough instances of the entire interview, or at least 80% or more of it, being on the English Premier League or on club football, or on chess, on badminton, on rankings, or in some cases, some of the fine art areas. Like I know for a fact that if you go in and say that you're somebody who's passionate about photography, then it could be an entire 20-minute discussion on cameras and lenses and aperture focus and all the paraphernalia that goes with it, right? So yes, indeed. I mean, there have been instances where people have gone into interviews and said, "I like to sing," and they were made to sing.
And
as surprising as that sounds, I mean, if you can sing well in an interview, you might actually do well in the interview, right?
Definitely.
I mean, it's your passion area. It's all about. I guess I think what both of you are trying to tell us is that know what your X factor is, right? Highlight it well in the interview. Try and make it relatable. Obviously, don't go in and say, "I like to collect coins," and expect them to be impressed by it. But try and link it somehow to the field that you're entering and how that probably helps. So if you can identify that X factor and bring it up, if it's unique enough, they'll probably quiz you about it, and that's where you might create the maximum amount of impact, right?
Definitely.
Very.
That was one thing, sir. And in conclusion, sir, there is one notion among aspirants that once they have cracked the entrance, is a quite high chance that they'll convert the call more or less from any of the IIMs. So this is where I would suggest all of them to be smart, because if you notice the weightage for getting selection into an IIM, if we're talking about IIM Rohtak, 50% weightage is given to the exam, 30% to the personal interview, 10% to the WAT, and 10% to your past academics, right? So in this case, you better analyze after you, for example, if cleared the examination, analyze if your exam went really well. You know that 50% is going to affect a lot in a positive direction. if, for example, your examination did not go that well, yet you have cleared. So you know that that 50% is not that much, but only sufficient enough so that you've cleared it. So based on that, you better, get your preparation of PI on point, and do not ignore the WAT at all. You never know when that 10% could make a difference. Like past academics, 10%, that's done. You can't do anything about it, right? But the WAT, like this is 70% which we have covered, but the 10% WAT, the written ability test, is also very important. I would urge every candidate out there who's preparing to not take this lightly. In fact, WAT writing an essay is sometimes really difficult for certain people, right, who are not used to this, especially since, I know we've come fresh out of 12th, but it may be difficult at that point to actually think about the topic and write a good essay. Remember, you're competing against thousands of students writing that. Right, so your essay should just stand out. In fact, if your essay stands out, there's a high chance that they'll quiz you on your essay. And if they're quizzing you on your own essay, on your own WAT essay, then you can just breeze through that interview and easily convert that IIM. Right, so that is very important. If you make it very unique, right? If you make your essay very unique, they will actually quiz you on that. They will get your opinions on that, and that is something which will be really positive, because it shows that they're impressed by your WAT. Right. And for preparation, I would definitely advise that you read the editorial column of the newspaper, particularly every day, because it enables you to understand the opinions of others and then formulate your own stance on an issue accordingly. Plus, all the important issues are like stated there. So it's comparatively more easy to be abreast of whatever is happening and form a stance on it accordingly. So this is something which I would definitely suggest. Concentrate on every part of it, not neglect anything. Boards are done, that 10% is done, but the rest 90%, focus well, the exam, the interview, and the WAT, do not ignore that. And overall, your chances of converting that IIM will definitely increase.
Absolutely. With 30-35% weightage in the final stage, resting on the interview and about 10 to 15%. I mean, I know that IIM-Indore and Rohtak are quite similar, right? So it's 50% that, that is the weightage given to the test score. And so the rest of it is still going to be what rests in your hand. So it would be the personal interview, it would be the essay that you write, or the WAT that you write. So I think if anybody is listening in, I think these guys have made a fantastic case for you making sure that initially, while your focus should be on the written test, on the aptitude test, but only if you continue to read the newspaper on a daily basis, will you do well in the second half, right? And that's going to be equally critical. So if anybody is listening in, then even though your exam is probably going to be end of next month or in the middle of July, probably, make sure that the next month or so that you read a newspaper regularly, as Aman pointed out, read the newspaper diligently, try and form your own opinions about topics. And also, I think tutorials also give you a very nice way of learning how to construct an essay, right? I mean, sure, I know if somebody asks me about COVID, I'm sure I'll have a bundle of ideas, but how do I put that down in a structured manner on paper is something that an editorial can teach you well, right? So this was absolutely very helpful. Chirag, any closing words from you?
So just one suggestion to everyone listening to this. So it's a very competitive environment. Everyone wants that seat. So there may be some cases of people acting dirty, even the people you know. So in case you happen to give the exam, the IPM-AT exam, in a proper center, if at all it happens, or during the time of your interview when you meet people, just try and do not give out information you know. Just try to restrict what you know to yourself, and don't even ask the others ki, what do you think on this about this topic. They may misread you on purpose. So be a little selfish at those times, because it's that one seat you all are fighting for. Everyone wants that. And if you disclose what you know to another person, he gains something and it may increase his chance. So that is
I think the competitive spirit that the IIMs are supposed to teach you is really rubbing off. I can see that Chirag has a really competitive streak in you, and I think I agree with him, right? I mean, if you walk into an interview, know that everybody sitting in that room. In fact, I believe that the applicant to selection ratio at any of the IPM level is about 10:1, right? So you walk into an interview room and there are 15 candidates sitting there. You should think to yourself, probably 2 of them are going to go in, so it better be me, right? So keep that in mind. But I think the I think the supplementary point that he's also trying to drive at is that the IIMs and most top these schools in the country, most management schools in the country are very, very high on ethics. And the ethical stance when you're going in for an interview is not to divulge, what your experience was, because it might give an unfair advantage to the next candidate, because if he knows what the panel is like, what panel is composed of, and the kind of questions that they're asking, then that might just predispose one candidate more than the other. So to keep a level playing field, go do your best. Sure, make friends with the rest of the people there, but maybe let that competitive spirit drive you.
Be cooperative and competitive at the same time.
Wonderful words. Cooperative and competitive, right? I think that's the spirit of the business world and competing well, right? So absolutely. I guess that it's been a very, very valuable session. I'm sure that more people will want to reach out and ask questions of various sorts. So I take the liberty of channeling all questions that come down to you guys. If anybody is listening in and anybody needs to ask us any questions, we will in the description of this video we will put up some contact information. So to make sure that you guys contact us. I have a small announcement as well. We starting next week, we are going to do, this is obviously a live session to tell you more information and to interact with these smart minds, trying to understand what worked for them in the exam. But given that, the month of June is entirely going to be in lockdown and you guys have plenty of time, EPTITUDE is going to start a set of live, classes on YouTube. So we are going to run towards the Indore, Rohtak exams and try and do a lot of practice, build up towards, build up strength in various areas of the exam and do this on YouTube. So if anybody is listening in and you want to be part of that, do subscribe to our channel and do keep a close watch to what we announce. Right? Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot to a very, very informative session. Arya, Aman, and Chirag, I really thank you for your time. Thanks for taking out.
Thank you for the opportunity, sir.
Definitely, sir. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. And maybe hopefully we do more of these and keep interacting in the future as well, right? All right.
Definitely, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you guys and over and out.